just recently read in a Modern Drummer interview from back in 2001 that according to Trey Anastasio, prior to playing with Oysterhead, you weren't really sure where your drums were and had to dig them out of a closet somewhere. Is it true? And have you had many periods of time where you were away from playing for quite a while?
Yeah, about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah. During which occasionally I would have to get up and play something, which was always a drag. And it was actually Les Claypool who got me out of retirement. It was, well, the two of them dragged me to that first Oysterhead gig in New Orleans, and that's where it all started. But Les Claypool calls out of the blue and says, "Hey, could I produce a Primus track? And as part of that, could we have a jam in SIR?" And sure, okay. So we go down to SIR, and my drum roadie from the Police days is still my tech here at the studio. We've been working together for almost 30 years. And so he has to figure out which unit, which locker the drums are in. We find the drums and take them over to SIR and set them up, the two of us trying to remember how they go. And wait a minute, didn't I have a splash? I know I had two splash cymbals in the front here, but where's the other one go? Scratching our heads. Meanwhile, Brain and Primus has completely got his kit tweaked out, and he's like a hungry dog watching all this, waiting, like a dog watching dinner being ladled out,
To help you?
I beg your pardon?
Waiting to help you?
Yeah, and so I start playing, and one of my little hi-hat things or something, that's a little clumsy, little hack-handed, but distinctive. Immediately he's on it, and he's got all my chops down, only really greased up and fine. Kid eats my lunch. But the funny part of it was that as he's eating my lunch, he has this look of rapt adoration on his face. And it's almost as if I'm playing the hi-hat pattern a little stiff, so he's trying to figure out how to get that Copeland stiff feeling, It's a funny moment. Anyhow, I went home feeling whipped. I used to be Godhead revealed, and now this fucking kid just ate my lunch, And it's like, and I get home and I'm all, not really depressed because it had been years since I thought of myself as a drummer anyway. And but just fortuitously, I get a call from Gene Provencio, the guy at Tama. And he says, "Hey, Stewart, I haven't heard from you in a decade or so. Are you still playing drums? I mean, what are you doing these days?" And I told him my little Primus story. And he says, "Stewart, what you need is a new drum set." So next thing I know, I think it was because they had a new line there, the Star Classic series or something. And he wanted me to try it. So, okay, they send over this drum set, and this fucking drum set arrives. And I start pulling them out of the boxes, and this beautiful maple finish on them. And drummers don't have the same relationship with their drum set that guitarists have. You take your guitarist to your hotel room at night and you sleep with it. Even drummers do sometimes. But you don't take your drums home. Your drums get disassembled by roadies. They get they get torn to shreds by roadies, put into boxes, and you don't see them until the next show. You don't. But these drums just had that lustrous quality, the feeling of the wood, the bull, all this exposed bull, the metal stands that warm in the hand, And as I'm pulling them out of the boxes and setting them up, I can feel my blood is just running a little hotter in my bloodstream. And I'm setting them up, and I pull out the stands, kick open the legs of the stand, fling those things up, and then I pull out and Pasty send over, their new thing, the signature series cymbals, and man, I'm setting this stuff up, and I've got this beautiful drum set, and I start blasting away on it, and I haven't looked back.
So you still have the pasties on there now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you almost feel?
I mean, it was really Oysterhead that, that it all just kind of came together with Oysterhead, which made me realize that this drum thing is actually, I'm pretty good at it. It's much cheaper than polo, and I'm much better at it than polo.
Does it bother you that the Police might be the number one thing that you're remembered for, or are you just happy to be able to do what you love?
Not a problem, not an issue.
Not an issue?
Nah. I'm real proud of the Police.
Well, I think a lot of people are with things like that they become known for, and then, you get that they tend to resent it after a while.
No. The only thing was that I did go through a slight Eric Clapton syndrome, where I've heard, I don't know if this is even true, but I call it Eric Clapton syndrome anyway, which is that he hasn't been playing his guitar for a while. There's a guitar someone expects him to play, and he picks it up, and he's a little rusty, and everybody's looking, expecting Godhead. And he's a little rusty. And you don't want to cause disappointment, so how about I don't pick up that guitar?
All right.
And so eventually you kind of get further and further away from your instrument. And I had a little bit of that. But no, I mean, it's not like, no, I'm real proud of the police. And, it's not like, don't mention that, like, got to show interest in the rhythmist, I'm real proud of the rhythmist, too.
And I think that's a very, very healthy attitude to have.
Well, I think you'd have to be pretty unhealthy, not, which many musicians are.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty bruising, the whole fame thing.
I've known a fair share of ones that were kind of screwed up.
Well, it's weird. It's a weird journey, and it affects different people in different ways. It is certainly a journey through weirdness, where all your friends look at you differently, all your relationships are just altered, and your self-worth is just exaggerated to a cartoon level.
Right.
It's not the end of the world, but it's a little weird.
Of the things that you've done, what did you seek out, and what opportunities kind of found you?
What do you mean? Of all the different things I've done, let's see. Mostly the symphonic work, the opera and all that stuff, was an incoming phone call. The film composing thing was an incoming phone call. Francis called up, said, want to score a movie, and I'd never even thought about it before. Other things, the police, I designed on a drawing board and set out to build the police. I had the name before I had the band. Oysterhead was an incoming phone call. God, sounds like I don't have any fucking sense of direction here, because most of the cool stuff has been incoming phone calls. But that's the real life of a musician, I guess. If I had to suddenly decide, I wish to write a symphony, it doesn't feel like, it feels like an exercise in self-indulgence. It doesn't feel like you're really making art until you get commissioned to write a symphony. You have the Seattle Symphony call up and say, please write us a symphony. Then it feels like you're doing something.
I don't think I've ever heard it put that way.
Well, it's really odd. There's a friend of mine who is a musician, who is an incredible painter. And he actually became a film director, and he, working at this and working at that. One day, he won a court case where he got $10 million in damages, or other punitive damages, where that wasn't the amount of money that was at stake, but the judge and the jury just figured that the people who did him in, his accountant, were such assholes that they had to pay, punitive, so he got this 10, and he could retire. He thought, well, fuck all this, I'm just going to paint. And so he just painted. And he soon realized that it just didn't feel right for him to be making paintings that nobody's going to buy, that nobody has commissioned, that there's no, you can paint till the cows come home and it has no meaning unless you're getting paid for it, unless that's what you do for a living, unless your art somehow sustains you. It just doesn't feel like art. It just feels like some weird kind of it feels like finger painting or self-indulgence.
There certainly is.
Odd the way that works.
Also, with the police, we're interested to know about how you came around with the name, especially with how it fits in with the other names like FBI and IRS.
Well, it didn't fit in with FBI and IRS because it pre-existed those others. And those other names sort of followed, I had the police on Illegal Records, my little record company, which had only one artist, the police. The name, the police, came because I saw it written on the side of cars. I just figured it was an easy-to-remember name that sticks in the brain, that it's unsettling. It's sort of not what you would expect a group to be called. There's 20 different things I liked about the police. It was simple, direct, and it had it just worked for me.
And it
to go out and find some pliers.
It didn't have anything to do with your father's career in the CIA?
No, nothing at all. And it wasn't until, and then I had illegal records. And then Miles had some other company that sort of followed that thing, and then it's kind of a lame gag, actually. The only funny part was my brother Ian, who had the FBI agency, Frontier Booking International, and he's working at his office late one day, and the secretaries have all gone home, but he's still working, and the phone rings, and he picks it up and says, "Hello, FBI," and the voice on the other end of the phone says, "No, this is the FBI." And he said, "Hey, look, you can bust me for, send one of your agents down there, and if you can catch anyone here impersonating a federal officer, I'll give you, I'll buy you a beer."
That's good.
Stewart, I have one thing that's kind of been bothering me over the last couple of weeks here. I can't figure out what's being said repeatedly in the background of Wield the Spade. If you could...
Babylonian impaling.
Babylonian impaling?
Yeah. Which was the subject of our dinner conversation that evening.
Okay. It's good to have that cleared up because I have found nowhere where anyone knows what was being said there.
Babylonian impaling.
Right. That's interesting.
How do you think that the police fit in the New Wave movement? Was it a part of it, or was it more in contrast to it, and it just got...
Well, I think the word New Wave, as distinct from punk, New Wave derived from punk, and the police was the cusp of that transition. We were the first punk group with the correct punk hairdo. We were the first short hair band that played music other than punk. And punk described a specific kind of music in sound, but there was more to it than that sound. There was an overall rebellion against old wave, against long hair bands, against everything that had gone before. And there were people who were inspired by the revolution, but not necessarily punk music per se. Talking Heads, B-52s, a lot of the American bands and a lot of the English bands too, who were new and different. They were on this side of the watershed, but there wasn't punk. And I think we were, I guess, the first group that made, we started out as a punk band, but the chords got, the harmony became more sophisticated, the music became more layered, and wasn't punk so much, but was still on this side of the watershed. And also, the word punk was largely discredited by the Sex Pistols when they played in America. Fortunately for everybody, way down in the South where nobody saw them. But it has to be said, they blew it. They didn't impress anybody. It didn't work. They didn't cause the outrage that they intended to. They just caused indifference, and it was a damp squib. However, the need was still there for a new movement, for a new style, a new flag to wave. The vacuum was there in America that was there in England, which created the gap in which the Sex Pistols filled. But the Sex Pistols just didn't work in America. Punk didn't work in America. The word itself had a different connotation in America. In England, the word punk meant kind of American and cool. In America, the word punk meant jerk. It just didn't, the word didn't work. And the Sex Pistols came over and blew it with they almost blew it for everybody. And so that's why they came up with New Wave.
Interesting. I never had even heard that level of detail in the development of the transition between those two forms before.
Well, Talking Heads, New Wave.
Right.
The Clash, the Buzzcocks, Sex Pistols, punk.
Right. It's easy to distinguish. Like you can point at a band and say, yeah, they're new wave, and another you can say, yeah, they're punk.
Well, the way the whole shooting match, punk is part of the new wave. So the whole shooting match is determined by the hairdo. punk. It was the same, same E, A, and D chords, same instruments, same everything, same amps. Just a different hairdo and a different attitude.
Right. I mean, you look at something like The Exploited, which is considerably more harsh than Talking Heads.
Yeah.
And you can see there's definitely...
They are both Talking Heads. They are both new wave, but but they're not both punk. The Exploited are punk.
Okay. So new wave encompasses punk.
I would say so, yeah. I guess I can fucking well say so. I was there. Yes, it is thus.
Yeah, well, we're not going to contradict you.
I wouldn't.
I do have another drum question, actually, if you don't mind. I'm looking at your current setup, and you have double bass pedal on the single bass drum.
Yep.
Actual double bass.
That's new. That's from when I saw Slipknot. I thought, fuck me, I gotta get one of them.
Okay, so did you ever try the actual double bass versus the pedal, or?
Yeah, Curved Air, pre-Police, I tried that.
Curved Air, you did that?
Messed me up for a couple of years.
And was there a reason you have a preference for the pedal? Was it positioning of the toms and the
Well,
hi-hat?
yeah, when you have two bass drums, it spreads the whole thing out so that the hi-hat is in an uncomfortable position.
That's the problem I'm seeing right now, yeah.
Yeah, and so the guys who really, really, really do a lot of double bass drum stuff, they need two drums to get the definition. I don't do enough of it to warrant losing that connection with the hi-hat. You know, I did a show once with George Martin, the producer, here in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Bowl, where he had the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, and he played all of the Beatles orchestral songs. He played the orchestral arrangements of everything, and he called me and a couple other players to play the band parts. And to play Ringo's star parts, I stripped my kit down. One tom-tom in the front, one on the side. One ride cymbal, two crash cymbals. That's it. Man, it was so easy to play without all these fucking drums in the way.
I know what you're saying. And I had one other thing I wanted to ask about. I've been playing for a long time, but never really had to put a lot of extra time into it. Didn't always have the time to practice as much as I could. I'm looking for any kind of tips to develop the right hand independence on the drums a little bit better with the ride cymbal. Things that I could get a little more independence. Is it just time and hard work, or?
That is a good question. To get independence, I think it's brain scrambling. It's very uncomfortable. The place where I learned it was once again in lessons, and I remember that stage of building that, that pillar of drumming, exhausted me. My teacher at that time was the famous Max Abrams in London, and who kind of wrote the book on drumming technique. And his exercises were all about the separation, and it was, because you're reading as well, because it was all written down. And it was about keeping ting, 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 ting going, because he was an old jazzer. Like I say, all of my training was in the context of jazz, which is why I'm allergic to the stuff today. And the patterns on the snare were written in such a way to fuck you up while trying to play ting, ting, ting with your right hand. And all I can say was that it was hell, separating the two hands. I find that when I make coffee, I'm stirring or putting sugar in with one hand while getting the milk out of the refrigerator with the other hand. I don't know. This separation of the hands seems to extend across being able to, button my shirt and do my belt buckle at the same time, That it's something I would say to confirm your worst fear, that it's a lot of training. It's very difficult. I remember driving home from the Max Abrams, or catching the tube home from Max Abrams, just with my brain feeling like was spaghetti.
And sit down and sweat through it.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't work on, actually, which is why it's a trick question. If you'd asked me how to even up your hands or any of the other technique questions, I might, that's stuff that I work on, actually, and I've got answers for that. But the separation part, I don't actually work on. I seem to have that together now. So I haven't evolved an easy, less strenuous exercise for developing that separation.
So it's one of those things that you kind of do without knowing how you do it? Like it's automatic now?
I guess so, yeah. Because I can't think of a shortcut to creating that freedom.
Darn. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, can't help there.
All right.
All right, well, I think we've overrun our allotment here a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably one of my phones ringing here.
Yeah.
That's why you guys had to wait. Okay, well, look, I hope you guys got a story.
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
Cool.
Got a lot of good material.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.